Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Scott Wright. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
And I'm doing great. I'm super excited. And so I went to the website, and Scott is with Sycamore Creek Ranch, and to take a look at your stuff. And so I was really excited. So we're gonna talk about your journey today, from
Okay.
caregiver to changemaker. Basically, your mission to redesign memory care. Because this is phenomenal. We find that a lot of people find different things when they find their passion, and I appreciate that this and happened to be yours. And so let's talk about mom and dad.
All right.
All right. And so it looks like one of them had Parkinson's and one had Alzheimer's. Who had
That
what?
is my dad had Parkinson's. He was diagnosed with it like in his early 50s. He had to retire from the airlines because of it. And my mom got diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's probably 2011-ish. So it was those two, together trying to make it through life. And there came a point where they couldn't anymore.
Yeah. And what did you when did you figure that out? Because I
Oh,
know a lot of kids sometimes they figure it out on time. Some are a little later than normal. And so, but when did you figure that they couldn't really, it wasn't safe for them to be at home anymore?
well, it's a long process. It started with, oh my gosh, I'd call my mom, and we had just talked about something, a couple of days earlier. And I was kind of, I get angry. We didn't realize what was going on at that time. I was like, Mom, I just told you that. Well, it just progressed and it progressed. And my stepdad, part of his medicine is the carbidopa levodopa. And it had to be given under strict conditions, like an hour before meal, 45 minutes after, this time throughout the day, for him to function. Because he'd been living with that so long, it was getting towards the end, where he was really crippled with Parkinson's. And he was able to function, but he had to have his medication right. And she was unable to do that. I drove up to they lived in Beat Eyes, Texas. I'm sorry, I'm probably moving around.
It's all right.
They lived in Beat Eyes. They built their dream place on a little farm up there. And after Walt was declining so much, I would drive up there once a week to organize his medicines and her medicines. I put a time clock on it, alarm system, and big letters here, administer this in a box. Oh my gosh. And I'd go back up the next week and it was a mess. And Walt was worse. And they did not want to leave that place at all. And I was sitting on the front porch with Walt, and my mom she could not take care of him anymore. And I said, Walt, it's been oh man. I said, we have to have a quarterback in this operation. I said, and you can't do it anymore. He was like, well, I guess we'll just stay up here and go to heck. Well, about a week later, he fell and broke his hip. Mm. And so we got him down to the Woodlands area. And my mom was staying with us, and he had surgery. He went in rehab. And my mom was, at that point in time, she carried around a book. She carried around the book for like the last 6 months in her purse. And in that book, it was open to one page. And she would read that page over and over. And it was just like a romance novel. And it was just heartbreaking. we had to do something. Could not get them to, at that point in time, I started looking around at other memory care facilities, and I took her with me. And it was shocking, of first off, 99% of them were crossed off the list, because you walk in and it was just, the smell was horrendous. Yeah. And then most of the other ones, people were just sitting around watching TV. A lot of them were little chopped up designs, where you had small rooms, and not like, I did not want to put my mom in a place like that. Around this time, Ted, my co-founder, my partner, he had been in the senior living industry for years. His parents had been in the senior living industry for years. And our kids, we met each other through youth football. And, I was telling him about my mom, and he said, well, I got an idea. I've been wanting a partner to do this idea, which was create a memory care facility, purpose-built memory care facility for seniors. And I was like, what? I was not that convinced at that time that I was going to do this. Long story short, Walt got better. They refused. They were not going to do anything. So they went back up to BDIs, and things got worse, and worse. When she was living with me, actually, when he was in the rehab facility, she'd leave the gas oven on and walk away from it, or leave the stove on. She was just getting to where she could not function, in simple day-to-day activities. And I knew it was unsafe for them to be up in the country, but they refused. They refused to get help. Walt broke his ankle. He broke his other hip again, the second time. And it was a worse break. And he was in the rehab facility a lot longer. And in the interim, Ted and I had bought a house. We gutted it, added a bunch of square footage to it, and we're getting prepared to operate a memory care facility right there. So the timing was of the second fall and break was fortuitous, because at that point in time, they both agreed to move into our first building, which was the Pines at Oakhurst. And we had been up and running for not very long at all. And they didn't dig it at first, but after a while, it was their home. It was my mom's home. Walt kind of knew where he was, but he was in, with his medication being given to him on schedule and everything. And my mom being there happy, he was cool with it. He was really good with it. And our places are a little bit different from your average memory care. We have home cooked meals. The kitchen is like the command center of our building. It's the nurse's station, if you will. And, being the home cooked meals and everything was just like their home, but they weren't having to worry about all the day-to-day stuff. My mom was perfectly happy. Walt, from time to time, he would get unhappy, but it was progressing. His disease was really progressing to the point where it was impossible for him to even get up and walk.
So a lot of kids find that getting parents to not live at home anymore because it's not safe is very problematic. And so, unfortunately, it sounds like if Walt hadn't fallen, they might still be there.
No, he would have passed away for sure. Or he was in a pretty correct. It is very difficult to convince your parents that they need help. Very difficult. and not only need help, but I could not leave my mom alone in a place that really had a kitchen. You know, it was dangerous. She was going to start a fire or blow up the house, one of the two.
Yes, I can appreciate. And so we
Yeah.
have a lot of clients that, they have the same issues, as you. So talk to me about what I'd really like to know. I'm going to kind of throw you off here a little bit. I'd really
Okay.
want to know what your vision was of what you wanted this place to look like for your parents.
Home. That's all the amenities of home is what I wanted. That's what I foresaw. Now, in our first building did not, I mean, we were kind of constrained because it was not up. But my partner actually moved in to our first facility and lived there with his wife and children while we were designing our entire processes. And he was there for almost a year. And so at that point in time, we knew kind of what we were looking for our building, and we started to designing it, and we knew everything that we kind of were looking for.
So when you were thinking about designing that an entirely new memory care, besides the fact that it looked like home, what else? What makes your places different for those listeners?
Okay. Well, our care ratio is, and we figured this out while we were going through the throes of our first building. Okay. The care ratio in our buildings during the day is 4-to-1. Okay. At night, it's 1-to-8. Most places are 1-to-8 during the day, or 2-to-8 during the day, and 1-to-8 at night. So I sleep really good at night knowing that we put the best product out there for the safety of all our residents in our homes. And another thing that a walking track. Okay, we designed our buildings with like a walking track, in not only inside but outside. So when the weather's nice, they're outside. We have gardens and things like that out in my back. My mom loved to garden her whole life, and she still continued up until the last couple of years. Now she's on hospice right now. She's kind of declining, but she's beating the odds. But she loved to garden, and there's a lot of older people. They love to garden. So that was one of the things. And the food, we make home cooked meals are our signature. You walk into one of our buildings around lunchtime, dinner time, or breakfast, and it smells like home cooked meals, because that's what we do. We design our menus ourselves, and that's one of the good things we get from all our guests is that, hey, the food's good. Parents, children, whoever is in the building, when we're serving lunch or dinner, they're welcome to join in and eat with their loved one. If you walk into one of our buildings, you would never know it is a state certified institution. You don't see any of that at all. It's all behind the scenes, but it's there, and it is tough to get certified in the state of Texas, and it's tough to go through the continuing processes because there's always something different that they're looking for. But so we have all the bells and whistles of an institution, but you'll never even know that that's behind the scenes.
You talked earlier about when you were visiting homes with your mom that that the rooms were small. How does y'all's rooms differ?
Well, we have an open concept. Okay, the kitchen is our command center. Our residents can sit there and watch their meals be cooked. And it's an open room where if you go inside one of our buildings, you'll see what we're talking about. It's just wide open places. And that feels more like home. It doesn't feel like you're in some kind of chopped up element. And it allows everybody to see what's going on in the building. You know, if our staff's in the kitchen, they can see everything that's going on other than in the rooms. That was another thing that we figured out we needed. You know, bed alarms, chair alarms, they're really, really good. But we have motion detectors inside all our rooms because it's less intrusive for the resident. In other words, if they make a move, you know, and they're moving around, our staff knows it, but no alarms and things are going off. Now, if we have somebody that's high risk, we will put a bed alarm and a chair alarm in the rooms. But that was one of the things, all those alarms going off all the time, you know, you'd walk in. So that was something we changed. Oh my gosh. We just threw away the design and we started really from scratch is what we did.
But you didn't stop at one. You built 6 more.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what convinced you that this model needed to grow? And what impact have you seen on families, residents, and staff?
The first one we started with was a house. Okay. And we kind of knew what we were looking for in our new design. And we designed and built a building over on Cypresswood, our Cypresswood location. And my mom and Walt moved into that building. And they lived there until Walt passed away. And then my mom stayed there for a little while longer. Then I brought her up to the Woodlands. So she's lived in 3 of my buildings. She's kind of the diva, I guess, of the Sycamore Creek Woodlands right now.
And so, Scott, if somebody wants to see your buildings, and visit, how do they do that?
They can go to www.scrmemorycare.com, or they can call 936-662-1433, or you can email us at info@scrmemorycare.com.
And so I just want to thank you for being on the show today. Like I said, I checked it out. Looks like a really awesome place for families to be. And so I appreciate your dedication to helping other families as well.
Okay. You're more than welcome. You have a good day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcasts as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.